Hi team, I'm Winters. Let's talk about Warhammer 40k 8th edition. So first up, let's talk about the rules. There's lots of different rules videos out there on YouTube, and GW have been leaking like a boss. So this isn't going to be a rules discussion. I really want to talk about the story and the narration and the future of the hobby, because a number of you have been asking my opinions, and being an opinionator sort of guy, I thought I'd throw them out there. But while we're circling around the drain of the rules, let's talk about the drain. They're all draining away. All this 70, 90, 100 pages of rules and different codexes are being poured away and being replaced by a nice shallow pool. 12 pages long apparently, and free on the internet. And all the leaks and hints and tips that have been dropped off, the rules look good, don't they? I'm not going to go over them here. There's plenty of other people who do it better than me. But my overall impression, having everything rebalanced, all the points cost for everything rebalanced means you're going to see some units that you haven't seen for a very long time. There aren't going to be some auto-include lists. Of course, there's going to be some stronger units in certain circumstances. There's going to be some stronger lists. There's going to be people out there who net list the crap out of this and pick some very strong lists very, very quickly. But will it be strong in the sense of a reborn war host versus an orc boys mob? Hopefully not. There won't be that level of imbalance. Plus, formations are gone, and they're trying to level the playing field, saying, right, it's been 30 years of 40k. The entrance for new people to get into this hobby is a bit complex because there's so many different books you need to get. And a new guy coming in to your local gaming store or your local club, meeting the guy with the 3 Wraith Knights and the Reborn War Host, just smashes them and puts them off the hobby. Plus all the books you need to get. So this rebalancing, levelling the playing field, gives them a nice platform from where to grow. And I don't think they could have done this many years ago, many years ago, because there wasn't any flyers prior to 5th. And there wasn't super heavies, and there wasn't D. Not that there's going to be any D in the future, but super heavies come with really big guns, and in the future no D, just really powerful stats. And also the old hobby still had its roots in the role-playing aspect of Warhammer 40k. Warhammer 40k started out as Rogue Trader and was envisaged as a role-playing game. And then, because of the Rogue Trooper board game, which I bought, which was okay, because of that, they had to tag on the Warhammer 4000. And then one of their bylines when they were making Warhammer 4000, Rogue Trader, was everything had to be big. So, cities the size of planets, everything big. So they chucked another naught on the end and made it Warhammer 40k. And there was no Horus Heresy back then. First edition was very much, you could take these miniatures and put them to one side and role play them on battle maps if you wanted to. And second edition added so many new units that it became largely unplayable. And it's evolved and grown and grown and grown and grown, and now they've got so many more models. The factions have got lots of diversity in and amongst them. They've got to a tipping point where evolving it continually, just updating and updating the rules, is no longer working for them, and it's no longer working for us, really. So they're stopping it all, restarting everything, and that can only be a good thing. Back when they started, there was no Horus Heresy. I think it was in 89 or 90 they released Adeptus Mechanicus, the game of giant battle robots. And Adeptus Mechanicus had one model in it, which fought another model, and they were both Imperials, so they had to come up with an idea of how these two robots fought each other in the Imperium of Man. So on the back of the box they wrote a couple of paragraphs about a civil war and a chap called Horus, and that was their justification for having these two robots fight each other. And I remember reading that at the time, thinking that, no, that's getting quite ragey, my teenage self. the Imperium would never fight each other. That's terrible. And look what they did with that canon. Look what they did with a couple of paragraphs of stuff on the back of a box in order to justify some new models. The Horus Heresy, Black Library, all evolved out of that. The narrative for Warhammer 40k wasn't really locked down with the whole Horus Heresy thing, that big backstory wasn't really locked down and cemented until 4th edition. And then when the Black Library got hold of it, they've started to change some of our established preconceptions, such as Vulcan is not dead, Vulcan very much lives, Vulcan lives. That's an epic book. And the narrative continues to grow and expand. So from very humble beginnings, with a desire to sell models to people who might want to play with them, with a couple of paragraphs on the back of a box, we have the Horus Heresy. Because as well as great model makers and games designers, they have great writers as well. Side note, addendum, this is going out on the internet, so I know loads of you have opinions on the Horus Heresy and on the Games Workshop's writing ability and blah blah blah. And, you know, hit me with your opinions, that's fine. But in my opinion, all of this is my opinion, so take all this with salt for those people who don't like what I'm saying. But in my opinion, the Horus Heresy is epic, and the writers that they have on staff to write that sort of stuff shows that it is epic. And now we have Primaris Space Marines. We have the same model company, no longer owned by Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone, owned by shareholders, but they want to make money, and they wanted to make money back then, and they still want to make money now. We've got the same company designing new models, their signature line, the Space Marines of the 41st millennium, so that they're true scale, which is something that we've always asked for. And they're a bit better, because at the moment Space Marines aren't very good in assault. They only have 1 attack, these guys have 2. And they die very quickly, these guys have 2 wounds. And your humble guardsmen will have 1 wound. So they look a bit bigger, they're a bit more survivable, they're a bit more realistic to what Space Marines should be. And the narrative they've written on it isn't great at this time, and the internet went mad. And I was a bit pissed at the start as well. I was thinking, why couldn't they brought back Thunder Warriors 2.0? Or as it's Belisarius Cool and Mars, why couldn't it be some sort of cybernetic Space Marine mishmash? Why does it have to be Space Marines? And now I've calmed down a bit. A couple of days in, I've realised it had to be Space Marines. They're Warhammer 40k. You talk to people who don't know Warhammer 40k, and you mention Space Marine the game, Space Marine this. They kind of know what Space Marines are. They've seen those images on the internet, those GIFs, in various chat rooms and wherever. The Space Marine image is known outside of this hobby, I would argue. So they didn't want to bug around with it too much. And the narrative isn't great. It isn't Thunder Warriors 2.0. So now I've calmed down a bit. I remember the beginning of the Horus Heresy and where it came from. And I've got no doubt that in the future, the Primaris Space Marines will fit into the lore perfectly. Maybe they have got some. They say that there's Primarch gene seed in there, Custodes gene seed, Space Marine gene seed, all mixed up in there, makes a meaner, better, stronger Space Marine. And that's all they're saying for now. But maybe with a few Black Library books, with a few twists of the narrative here and there, they'll hint at Thunder Warrior gene seed in there, and these guys are deeply unstable, which is the only reason why they are unleashing them on the galaxy in this darkest of hour. Maybe. Or maybe in the Emperor's original design of the gene seed, there was this evolution. DNA, we mutate over time, right? We come from that fish to this to, maybe in the gene seed of the gene seed, the DNA of the gene seed, the Emperor in his genius planned for this, planned for a time where it would evolve, where it would grow, and where someone could take it with some, maybe Belisarius Cawl and Guilliman got hold of some lost knowledge at the end of the Horus Heresy, and in 3 or 4 years' time, somewhere in the Horus Heresy, in the middle of the Emperor siege on Terra, they get hold of it, they talk to the Emperor, and the Emperor says, here's this thing, don't use this thing, don't inject this one little chromosome into the DNA until 10,000 year time, until you really, really need to. And they go, okay, or in the darkest of days, do it then. I've got no doubt, there's just some ideas there, I've got no doubt that the Primaris Space Marines will be written very strongly into the narrative in the future. And for now, we've got something, a couple of paragraphs written on the back of a box. And there might be something more about the Primaris Space Marines in one of these codexes. And I notice a couple of the Black Library authors have been suspiciously quiet over the last 6 to 9 months. And I wonder if 1 or 2 of them are writing or releasing a book with the launch of 8th edition. They did 2 books about Calth when they did the Battle of Calth box set, the Horus Heresy box set with the Word Bearers, was it the Word Bearers? The Word Bearers and the Ultramarines, and they released the plastic box sets for Warhammer 30k, and they released 2 books from the Black Library then, one of each side of the coins, a bit like the Burning of Prospero and the Thousand Suns one. Maybe there's some Black Library books coming. Even if there isn't, Primaris Space Marines are here to stay. They had to do it with Space Marines. The narrative might not be something that's easy to swallow right now, but in the future I'm 100% certain it will be. And talk about the narrative, we've now got the galaxy ripped in half by the Great Rift, something in Latin I can't pronounce. I like the Crimson Path or the Grin or Gork or Mork. It's got a number of names about it. I like the fact that they said that if you look up into the night sky in the 41st millennium, you'd see this red tear running right through the night sky. Epic stuff. So the world of Warhammer 40k, the 41st millennium, has been stale and has been breaking apart and has been they've been on the back foot, and they haven't been evolving, they haven't been growing for 10,000 years. And it's a really nasty place to live, and it really sucks to be a human or a Space Marine there, so much so that I built my Space Marine chapter as renegades that didn't follow any of the normal script for the 41st millennium, because I didn't like it. I wanted to uphold the original tenets, the original ideas of the Great Crusade that the Emperor of Man had. Well, guess what? One of his sons is now back. Guilliman made it back to Terra, saw the Emperor. He came out of the Imperial Pact. He came after seeing the Emperor. They said, "What did you find out?" He said, "I've learned everything I need to know," or something like that, or words to that effect. And that's all he said. And then he sacked half of the High Lords of Terra, installed some of the new people, and took control of the Imperium, and said, "Right, I'm in charge. I'm now the Lord Protector." In any other system, he would have been shot. Despite being a Primarch, he would have been taken out back and given a right shoe-in. But this is where the religion of the 41st millennium actually came to help him. So, blasphemy aside, it was like Jesus turning up to these guys. This is the son of their God suddenly walking in amongst them saying, "This is the way we're doing things now. And we're no longer stale, we're no longer on the back foot. Now is the beginning of the fight back. And here are the new tools that I bring you." I bring my brilliant mind, but I also bring the Primaris Space Marines. And they're going to unlock more Space Marines, they've said. There's going to be a new Dreadnought coming out. They said the vehicles will change in the future. Basically, the Space Marine line in 2-3 years' time, or 1 or 2 years' time. I suspect in 1.5 years' time, quite clearly. Remember Stormcast Eternals? That line came out pretty quickly, and there's quite a broad range of Stormcast models out now. In this similar length of time, I see there being quite a broad new range of Space Marines out. And this is what Guilliman, with Cawl, these plans that were set in motion 10,000 years ago, probably with the Emperor's help, we'll find out. But this is what Guilliman is bringing to the Imperium now, a new great crusade. And I like it, because we're no longer on the... It gives you something you want to fight for. It is epic. It is, let's go out there, let's smash face. We've now got this dude behind us. It gives you the idea that more Primarchs might be coming soon. It gives you the idea that all may not be lost. It all is lost in the grim dark future right now. They are utterly screwed. But maybe if they roll 3 6s in a row, they might be able to save a few bits here or there. But they've got one hell of a huge fight ahead. So that hope has been tempered by the fact that the galaxy has literally been ripped in half, and to those on one side of the galaxy, they have got the light of the Astronomicon to guide them, but instead of chaos spilling out of the Eye of Terror and the Maelstrom and a couple of other points, they're spilling out all the way along the line. So the whole of the southern half of the Imperium is buggered. But then those north of the line, those up north, well, they're in a world of hurt. And that includes Baal with the Blood Angels, that includes Gazgal and Armageddon, that includes about 3/4 of the Necron dynasty on that side of the line. The Tau are kind of on the tail at the Damocles Gulf. They're just under it, I think. They're just in the good half. But those to the north are royally screwed. So they've got the hope, the resurgence, the reason to fight. We have a 8-foot tall, genetically engineered, superhuman in Guilliman, with a little bit of something stolen from the warp inside of him, because let's not forget, spoilers, the Emperor, in order to create his Primarchs, stole, according to Chaos, stuff from the warp to make them. That's why one of them had wings and one of them had psychic powers and da-da-da. And that piece of genetic material has been passed into their sons, the Astartes. So now we've got hope, but countering that, we've also got chaos rampaging, resurgent and rampaging, those words, eating up half of the galaxy, which is epic. On top of that, so Primaris Space Marines, so rules good. Primaris Space Marines, I like the models, I will be getting a bunch. I will write it into my narrative. It will work out, guys, I'm certain of it. The new setting, epic. The future, let's talk about the future. So with this new reset in Warhammer 40k, there's going to be a ton of new models coming, I predict. We've got the God of the Dead and the Eldar following the God of the Dead. That's a whole new model range there. Cormorra, the Dark Eldar, the Drukhari's realm, Cormorra in the Webway has collapsed, or is collapsing, is buggered. Demons are running through it, and the nightmare realm of the Mandrakes has erupted and is spilling out. Cormorra is so buggered. Vect, as Zabril Vect, the Lord of Cormorra, has left. The second book in the Fall of Cadia shouldn't have been called The Gathering Dark, shouldn't have been called The Fracture of Biel-Tan. It should have been called Cormorra, You're Screwed, because it is. So with the Nightmare Realm erupting into the realm of the Drukhari, just as we've seen Sylvaneth models creep into Age of Sigmar, a whole new aesthetic. I can see a new aesthetic creeping in. They've opened up lots of little hooks that they can do there. So that's Eldar. Orcs and Nids in the Octavia sector. I'm sure we're going to see something coming out of there in the future. And then we have the Tau with their fourth sphere of expansion, which is lost when the Damocles Gulf erupted in flame. This thing, Great Rift, ripped across the galaxy. The Tau 4-sphere expansion and that war zone going on. the Imperium finally answered with a massive Crusade fleet, set fire to the entire nebula there, and cut off the fourth sphere from the other sept worlds. The Tower now launched the fifth sphere of expansion, and the fourth sphere have disappeared, probably into that rift. So Tower probably going to pop up all over the place throughout the galaxy, and they've gone into the warp, so they may be changed. So you can see an evolution in Tower models. I can see an evolution in Dark Eldar models, and I see a lot of models coming. I see the game in a year's time, in 2 years' time, just like Age of Sigmar now. Think about Age of Sigmar. Age of Sigmar, they reset it, and loads of people got upset. And I can see why. I know I would definitely get upset, and we would all get upset if they did something like that to Warhammer 40k. They've taken a bit of that model and applied it to Warhammer 40k. So they reset Age of Sigmar, and there's now Age of Sigmar plays differently to fantasy ever did on the table. And when I walk into a game store, see people playing, I see them playing with the new models, and there's been so many new models and so many cool models coming out for Age of Sigmar. And so I can see that happening in 40k. There's been a reset, there's new models coming, we know the Death Guard are coming, we're pretty certain Mortarian's coming, so you're going to get new Demon Primarchs, new Good Guy Primarchs, new model ranges for almost every faction, and I can see the game looking different in a year or 2 years' time, playing differently and looking differently on the battle grid. And in the meantime, all of our models have been repointed, recosted, so straight away the battles that we're going to see will look differently because we're going to be playing with different stuff. Hello, I'm back. Today is tomorrow after I made that last little bit of video there. And how annoying is that, with the sun coming slowly across my chest, the light coming through the windows, and you can see that I rested the camera on one of my pieces of scenery and seeing the Gothic window slowly grow up my chest, and I didn't notice it while I was filming the video, and it looks dead unprofessional, doesn't it? And I sat down to edit it last night, and I saw the light come across my chest and come across and think, damn, what a retard. Maybe I should go back and refilm the whole thing. So I sat down this morning and tried forming a coherent sentence and saying the whole stuff again, and it just wasn't coming. And because I want to give a more professional sort of vibe for these videos, I want to come across as though I know what I'm doing with a camera and lighting and stuff, but honestly I don't. I'm just a guy with a camera pointing at stuff and talking about stuff, and fortunately for me, a lot of you out there kind of like it. Here comes the cat, you probably hear his bell in the background. See, not at all professional. And for those of you that, my true fans, the core fans who've been with me for a long time, who watch, a few thousand people who watch the review videos that I do or the showcase videos that I do, will have to stop halfway through and go to the shops or eat popcorn or whatever it might be. You know that the professional side of things isn't the way I roll, because I'm not professional. I do often look at those other YouTube channels out there that do the flashy graphics, and Tabletop Tactics is very good. You know, Lawrence, he clearly knows what he's doing. Visicast has been quiet for a while, but they know what they're doing. There's Wargamer Online. These guys know what they're doing with a camera and editing software. And then there's me, and I often think I should be doing more, particularly paying attention to lighting. But no, so I apologise for that. I'm not going back and redoing it. If you're watching this channel, this is the sort of standard you can come to expect from me. Just me talking. So while I've got the camera on, let's talk some more about 8th edition. I was thinking about it last night. The new rules thing about the toughness strength versus toughness value. Your strength equal wounds on a 4, as we know. It's got to be half or less to wound on 2s, or half or more to wound on 6s. So strength 6, strength 7 wounds toughness 4s on 3s now. And the game, it seems to me that we're going to be wounded a lot more on 3, 4s and 5s. There's going to be less of the 2s wounded on 2s, because you can have more than double. It's going to be strength 8, strength 9 weaponry, wounding toughness 4. And then the vehicles with toughness 5. All the sneak peeks of the vehicles I've seen have a minimum toughness 5. such as the Harlequin 1 and the Necron 1, I think was toughness 5. Dreadnought's obviously toughness higher, but because vehicles have toughness, at least a toughness 5, shall we say, that means strength 10 weaponry will wound them on 2s. So even vehicles getting wounded on 3. A lot more stuff is going to be wounded on 4s and 3s, and very few things are going to be wounding on 2s. So it's going to be tougher to wound things, but there's going to be more shots, more deadly things happening. And a lot more crap is going to be wounded on 6s, isn't it? Because everything can wound on 6s now. The humble bolt gun will be able to strip that last wound off an Imperial Knight when you've got nothing else to fire at. You're not going to be firing bolt guns at Land Raiders and Knights, but if it's got 1 wound left and it's charging towards your lines, you're damn sure those Marines are going to overwatch the crap out of it, hoping this Imperial Knight does not smash into their lines, hoping to nick off that one last fuel pipe from this smoking, steaming behemoth, blaring its war horn to stop it in its tracks, which is pretty epic. I like the idea of everything being able to wound stuff. Once played against an Eldar list, which had some Wraith Knights in it, but a lot of Wraith Lords. And it struck me in the middle of turn 1 when I was going up against 5 or 6 variants of Wraith Lords and then Wraith Knights. It was a Wraith army, there was Wraith Blades in there. That most of my guns were wounded on 6s against the little Wraith Guards and Wraith Blades, and then the rest of my army wasn't wounding the toughness 8 stuff at all. And by turn 2 it was really annoying. And by turn 3 the game was over. So it would have been much nicer than if some of my bolt guns could have actually hurt and not just bolt guns, but the storm bolters. The strength 4 in the Marine army, or most armies, is the staple, is the limit, isn't it? As soon as you get to strength 5 weaponry, you're looking at the more exotic stuff. Heavy bolters and assault cannons, the stuff that is harder to come by. So having everything wound everything on 6s, even the humble guardsman banging away at the side of a super heavy tank or an Imperial Knight to take that one last wound off, kind of makes sense. If there's a vehicle that is that injured, or a monstrous creature for that matter, that is that wounded, it's down to its last wound, what would it look like on the battle grid? What would it look like on the battlefield? It would look like a steaming, smoking, belching mess. A monstrous creature on one wound. The Swarmlord, by the way, that's for the Swarmlord. You should Google that and check that out. He's a beast. But if the Swarmlord was on 1 wound left, that injured and bleeding ichor all over the place, acid for blood. Wouldn't it be heroic if a lone guardsman managed to shove that last bayonet into its eyeball and kill it just before it kills every single person in the squad? That's what we want to see. We want to see those heroic moments where that last shot does its thing. That's why people like. That's why I quite like the 2d6 for charging. Beforehand it was a flat 6. Now it's 2d6 for charging. Those heroic moments where you really, really need that 10-inch charge and you make it, and it can swing the battle in your favour. Anything which relies on that one dice roll brings those cinematic moments to the tabletop. So I'm rather looking forward to that new wound mechanic. Okay, I can't really think of much more to say without going over everything that you may have already heard on the internet, and there's people out there who say it much better than me. So I'll wrap up here just to say that I'm looking forward to the new rules, playing New Hammer. I know a lot of you are as well. It seems to be very well received, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the narrative in the future, how the world of 40k evolves, how the Primaris Space Marines fit into the new narrative in the future, and which Primarchs come back in which order, and how the Grimdark continues to get grimmer and darker, but with a glimmer of hope as well. So bring on 8th edition, that's what I can say. There's going to be a couple of lore videos. I think there's one more Horus Heresy video. I'd said the last one was the last one, but there's going to be another Horus Heresy video that I'm doing, because Horus Heresy is sticking with 7th edition, we know, for the time being. Games Workshop have said. And there's a couple of lore videos on the 13th coming up. I needed something out there to fill the gap, and also people have been asking for it for a long time. I've been sitting on them for a very long time. I've done one of them, wasn't happy with the sound quality, so I've gone back and I will be going back and doing it again. A couple of little videos talking about my Space Marine chapter, and for those of you that like picking up a brush and painting and listening to me ramble on in the background, then you can look forward to these videos. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Happy wargaming.